Welcome to the Autosportradio.com show. We are coming to you from Green Street Pub and Eatery at 911 North Green Street in Brownsburg. This program is being presented by the Indy Dental Group. Indy 500 veteran Dr. Jack Miller and his wife Dr. Liz Lewis have a phenomenal practice. They're now up to 6 offices. If you need dental work, you think you haven't had any check lately, you need to check them out. Give them a call, make an appointment. The number is 317-846-6125. Their main office is at 92nd and Meridian. It's easy to get to off the interstate. If you need dental work or you haven't had a check them out. Need insurance? VP Insurance is the place to go. They're located at 5004 West 16th Street, about a mile straight west of the Speedway. You can talk to Mike Pardee or Tom, find out what you need, they'll help you out. And I've been with them for over 30 years, and every time I check, like the insurance commissioner says, they're the best. Give them a call. The number is 317-248-0070. SVRA, what a phenomenal organization it is. They got the F3 and the F4 series now, run by Scott Goodyear. They have brought back the Trans Am series to bigger than what it used to be. It's phenomenal. Want to find out where they're performing or what the events are? Go to svra.com and you'll be glad you did. They got sports cars, vintage sports cars. They got the Trans Am. They got the F3 and the F4. They got a full weekend when you go see them. A couple of things I want to mention. First off, the in-house sound courtesy of Pierce Sound Production. I went to the dentist finally. I decided it's about time I go. And the company I talk about is the Indy Dental Group. I'm here to tell you, it is spectacular. The people are fabulous. So if you need dental work, I need some. I went there. They're great. You'll love it. Check them out. Got to say happy birthday to one of our ladies here in the audience. Jackie Albers having a birthday. She's going to be 21, I'm sure. And Steve Jordan is having a birthday as well. He's going to try and get here. He may still come, who knows. My first guest is a gentleman that has always said, if you invite me and I'm available, I'll come once a year. Well, this is the second, so I think I'm through for the year. I don't know. He is the president and CEO of Penske Entertainment and owns the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Indy Racing League, IMS Production, the radio station, and property. So he's in on everything, and there's some questions I have, so I invited him, and he said yes. Please welcome Mr. Mark Miles.
Can I just start by saying you've gotten to the point where you're trading dental care for free ads? Is that right? Good for you.
If that's all I need, yeah, that'd be great. Several things have popped up. Initially, when I first talked to you and I said, I've got some questions, I get emails and texts all the time. What is the charter? I said, I really don't know as of yet, but I know who does. So you were going to have meetings with the owners at Monterey. There's been some articles written about it. What is the advantage to the team owners to have a charter?
Yeah, well, the idea is to create value for our long-standing loyal team owners so that if and when it's time for them to retire or to get out, they've got an asset they can sell. Because other than obviously engines and equipment that they would have always had. So a charter you can think of a little bit like a franchise, but it's not legally the same as a franchise. It's basically likely to be an agreement between us and each of the key team owners, which will have all the terms and specifics laid out for initially for 7 years. And they'll all be the same. It's not this guy has this deal and this guy has this deal. It's the basics. And the basics are going to include things like how many there'll be. My bet would be on 25 charters initially. And those would go to the teams that were the full-time teams last year, except that we put a limit of 3 charters per owner. Our friend Chip had 2 extras, so there were 27 cars running full-time last year. If you take those 2 out, there's 25. So maybe they get charters, and they get this opportunity to make an agreement between the series and themselves. And what might that be worth? How does that create value? The first thing is that if you want to race on the series next year, other than Indianapolis, I'll come back to Indy, then you're in. We'll have probably a max of 27 starting spots on the grid outside of Indianapolis, and the first 25 spots, without qualifying to see if you can get in, will go to the 25 charter teams. If we have more than that who are trying to get in, let's say 28, then those 3 cars, the 25 plus 3, the 3 cars would have to compete against each other to fill the field of 27. So it's an important thing that the key teams, the long-standing supportive teams, will be automatically in and not have to worry about getting in the field. That's the first thing they're in. Second thing is those 25 charter teams will compete every year in the championship like we've had it for the 22 leader circles positions, right? So 25 are running this year. The top 22 in the points race will get the money from us the following year. And you will not be able to compete to get into those, to be in the top 22 unless you're a charter team. So you're automatically in, and you have the ability to compete for the 22 finalists in the championship to get the money for the following year. And then finally, with that said, if you want to get into the opportunity to own an IndyCar team with those benefits, including competing to be in the leader circle, you have to buy one from one of the guys that has one. So those 25 sort of franchises or assets will have a value. So if you can think of new teams that might want to come along and might want to be able to compete for the leader circle, for them to be able to do that, they're going to have to buy a charter from one of our existing teams that wants to sell.
How many do you know of right today that would say, yeah, I'll sell?
None.
No. Now, there's a team from Europe that has run away with everything over in Europe, and the lower series coming here. I understand they got a shop they're working already. So that's one. Don Jasek has been talking for several years about getting a team. That's a possibility. I don't know if next year's a possibility. That's 2. Brian Reinbold has said if they get the sponsorship, they go. That's 3. And I understand there's another team somewhere.
Well, you don't know. I mean, Abel, for example, in Indy next.
He wants to come in, yeah.
But that's sort of the idea. You're making the point that, so the 25 own something. If somebody else wants to come in, somebody has to be willing to sell. And right now, I can tell you, I answered your question honestly. I don't think anybody's looking to sell.
No.
But everything's for sale at a price.
Yep.
So if you're a team that, maybe we're not going to do this 10 more years, and maybe the benefit of cashing out now is my level, what I'm looking for, maybe I would. We're not looking to push them out. We're looking to create an asset so that they have the opportunity to realize the benefit of their time with IndyCar if and when they choose.
Several things disturb me, and I'm disturbed anyway, but this automatically in. This is racing. You race to get in. And if there's 27 cars, you've got to race against 27 cars to make the field. Now, when I first came here, when you were just a young boy, at the racetrack.
Nobody said that to me for a very long time.
There'd be 30, 35 cars competing, and only X number could make it. So cars went home. It appears that that's what you're trying to avoid, but this is a challenge. The challenge is to make the field.
So again, let's first distinguish, and I didn't go back to the 500 because it's not the same.
Right.
But let's talk about the non-500 races. The idea is up to 27 cars can run. Who gets in? No, we feel like the guys who are showing up, the teams that are showing up for every single race and have a charter accordingly should get straight in. That's only 25. If there's 27 and 3 or 4 more cars show up, those 3 or 4 more cars will be competing to get in. Very different than the 500. For the 500, you got to get it. You gotta go out there, you gotta qualify. It doesn't matter whether you have a charter or not. You have to be in the top 33 to run the race.
Again, when you were a child and I was here, there were times when every 80, 90 cars jumped to get into the 500.
Yeah, well, let's talk about today.
Yeah, and that's
First of all, let's do the math. How young was I when I was a child?
you couldn't have been in '64. You probably weren't more than 10 at the most, if that.
11.
Oh,
Okay.
well,
so
you're older than I thought. Okay.
I'm a lot older than you. Yeah, well, forget that.
Okay. Because I'm way older, so I'll forget it very easily.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're older. Every time I'm in a meeting or a discussion with somebody and I find out I'm not the oldest person in the room, I'm really happy. It's good. What were we talking about before?
We're talking about long notice, I think.
This is the nature of this conversation, but okay. I don't know. What were we talking about?
We're talking about the number of teams.
Oh, I know what I was going to say.
Okay.
Look, we don't have that many engines. The OEMs, Honda and Chevy, and we hope to have a third or a fourth, are interested in having, pick a number, maybe 8 each. The idea that of prior years that 90 cars can show up, it's not going to happen. It's not even remotely possible because the engine manufacturers have to manage their costs, and we will work with them on how many engines they have to supply. So look, someday I think you'll talk about Chevy and Honda and blank, and maybe collectively, not including the 500, they got to supply enough engines to have 27 cars on the grid. So I get where you're coming from how it used to be, but it's not in the cards. It's expensive for these major OEMs to provide enough cars to go around the grid throughout the course of the championship. And right now, I don't see a scenario in the near term where there's more than 29 engines out there week after week after week. So that's the reality, and it's okay. We're going to focus more on the competitiveness and the quality of our teams than seeing how many can show up and be 2 laps behind.
Well, in the days that I'm talking about, when there's that many cars, you built your own engine.
I know, but
which was a hell of a lot different.
I get it, but it is different, and you really have to get your head around today's realities, and it's not like, build it and show up and run it.
Well, I was here when it was supposedly proven by some guy who did the math that you couldn't go 150 miles an hour on the speedway. I was here the day that was broken.
Yeah, and how many times did a bunch of cars finish on the lead lap? The racing today has benefited from the realities of the way we race and the way the technical aspects of it are run, in my opinion. Theoretically, you could say, no, we just want anybody to show up, but I love our racing. I love how competitive the teams are, how professional they are, and how it comes down to teams and drivers, and that just wouldn't be the case if it was possible to have 80 cars show up.
Okay.
Could you repeat that? I didn't understand the question.
But again, to me, it's just a little bit, if some guy wants to come and say a Don Cusick says, I've got sponsorship, got a car, I want to enter. Well, you got to buy a franchise, and to my knowledge, none of the current owners are willing to change now. They're doing well, they're enjoying it, it's good competition. So when do you anticipate, now you had a meeting was set up with all the owners of Monterey. How did things go with that? Is everybody going rah?
We didn't have a group meeting. I spoke with every owner in Monterey last weekend, and to the person, they are supportive of this approach I've just broadly described. There's still more details I haven't gotten into. So I think this charter system will be accepted, that we'll sort of codify it and pull it all together and paper it and get it signed this season, so that it's all at speed for next year.
Now, I do remember reading in an article that said, if you choose to sell your charter You have to be approved to sell it. The buyer has to be approved. And the commission goes to Penske Entertainment from both sides, from the buyer and the owner.
You're 2/3 wrong.
Well, that's not possible. I just read what it
But
said.
look, the good news is it was 1/3 right.
Yeah.
You don't have to be approved to sell, and we're not taking commission. The buyer has to be approved. If you were a well-known mafioso and a person of bad character, we might say, no, you can't buy one. But we have to approve buyers. We do not have to approve the team selling it. There's an important difference there. And there will be a fee charged, and 100% of the fee will go to the remaining charter teams, not to Penske Entertainment.
But as I said, I read an article that somebody wrote about it, and those two things I mentioned were in it.
No, I know you didn't make it up, but it's the beautiful thing, it's the wonderful thing about having the microphone. I can actually be straightforward and clear.
That's why I speak with you. Now, it's going forward. Everybody seems to be in accord with it. I know Mike Shank is all excited about it. He thinks it's a great idea. So we can try and recoup what he's invested in motorsports. So, and Mike is no dummy. He's a pretty smart
Great
guy.
guy.
So if he thinks it's a good program. Now, number two, since I invited you initially, NBC got outfoxed by Fox. And
Fox by Fox, I love that.
And in it, it said, if I'm not mistaken, and I may be mistaken again.
Or they might be wrong, whatever this is.
Well,
gonna
that's
be.
the other problem. That's why I try to be careful who I read and what I repeat. That the Peacock, which I had, I loved it. It was great. If I couldn't get to the racetrack, and if I saw something I didn't understand, I know enough people to call and say, what was that? And I get an answer. Is Fox going to have a Peacock type setup either on either Fox 1 or Fox 2, Fox Sports 1 or 2, that will show the practice and qualifying, and it's going to show next practicing, I understand.
Yes,
To which?
to all of it.
Oh, okay.
So let me be more specific.
Okay.
Every IndyCar race will be shown live on the Big Fox, the network, which is free to air everywhere in this country. 17 races plus Saturday and Sunday of Indy 500 qualifying, 19 network windows. That's a 50% increase in the amount of our racing on network compared to this year, where we've got whatever it is, 10, I think, on NBC. So everything we do that's racing and qualifying at the 500 will be free to air on Fox. You won't have problems getting that, right? You all know how to do that. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Exactly, thank you. So then qualifying for, I'm talking about IndyCar now, qualifying and practice will all be on cable, either FS1 or FS2, except for the 500, which is qualifying, which is on Fox. That has a much larger audience than your friends at Peacock for qualifying and practice. So the way I'd say this to you from the point of view of IndyCar fans and IndyCar is it's more than a 50% increase in the number of hours from this year to next year that'll be on network. Network being the difference between NBC and Fox. By the way, we've had a great relationship with NBC. They've been important to us, great friends, helpful in our growth. But Fox and CBS are the only two U.S. networks that have increased their hours of sports coverage in the last several years. Every other U.S. network has decreased. So it's a growth platform for us. And I could go on about this forever. The 50% increase in hours that we're going to have from this year to next year on network is a huge increase. Think about this. If there was a race that was just on Peacock, or a race, well, and there have been, right? Because you can't, that's what happens if you have 10 network events, and you got 7 left, they're going to be on cable, USA, or Peacock, exclusively. And those audiences are like this. All of that on network is a huge increase in the people that will watch IndyCar next year. There's just no question about it. So that's the racing. Then for the practice and the qualifying, everything will be on either FS1 or FS2. That's easier to get. Sorry to my friends at Peacock than Peacock. It is cable. If you've cut the cord, you can still get it through other forms of online television. And that includes IndyNext. So it's a huge increase in the accessibility of IndyCar racing, practice and qualifying, and IndyNext from one year to the next.
Is IndyNext practice and qualifying going to be picked up by Fox?
Yes, on either FS1 or FS2.
Yeah, but it will be shown, which I think is great.
Yeah, and look, if we had this conversation a year ago, I don't know how you slipped 2 in this year, by the way.
I don't either, but it worked.
But if we have this conversation a year from now, or at the end of next season, the number of people will have the documentation that have watched all that compared to this year is off the charts.
I got to assume there was also a benefit not only to the exposure for fans, but to the IndyCar with Fox coming in. Maybe they picked up a couple extra shekels along the way.
Yeah, well, we haven't talked about the money, and I'm not going to talk about the money.
No, I don't
but
expect you to.
let me just keep going on our mentality about this. Does anybody listen to this outside this room? It's a joke. I'm just kidding. This is just between us. No, I mean this, it's honest and it's authentic, but it's not negative. But we in NASCAR took different approaches to licensing our media rights beginning in 2025. You just heard what we did. Every single race and those 2 Indy 500 qualifying events will be on national network. What does it mean? It means the maximum audience, easy to tune in to promote from one race to the next to the next. It couldn't be simpler or more available, accessible for our fans. NASCAR, and we went from 50% increase in the amount of hours that will be on network. NASCAR, by the way, if we had been offered $1.1 billion a year, we might have done what they did. We didn't get it. But here's the fact, if you're the NASCAR fan, and you can contrast it to the IndyCar fan. They went from 17 network races, next year will be 9. And if you want to watch every race on NASCAR next year, you will need to be able to have access to Fox, FS1, FS2, Amazon Prime, Amazon Streaming, TNT, NBC, USA, and Peacock, because their races will be aired on all of those over the course of the season. Hard to navigate, not cheap if you're the fan. So when you start to talk to me about the cost of getting our new package compared to that one, I think ours is incredibly fan friendly and easy, right? It's not hard to figure out. It's Fox, or it's FS1 or 2 if you also want to tune into the practice and qualifying. So, okay, they've got a whole lot more content. It's easier for them to divide it up and to share it among different platforms. But I always think about it from the perspective of the fan, and I think we've got a much easier, much more accessible proposition that they were going forward. My prediction will be that IndyCar's audiences will go up in a very meaningful way next year, and we'll wait and see whether that's the case with NASCAR.
Now, it's not a secret. There's a number of former Formula One drivers and Europeans that compete in the series, and each one I've spoken to, they love it. Coming from Formula One, I said, this is more fun. Everybody's got a chance. And you can win on any given Saturday or Sunday. Are the races going to be? Do you have to take a pill?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
That's right.
I don't want Mr. Jasek to nap off on us. Will this be available in Europe and South America?
Yeah, no change. We sold Fox are US rights, and when you sell US rights, you sell US territories like in the Caribbean and the like. But all of our other rights have been sold by us individually by country or by region,
Oh,
and
really?
we'll continue to do that.
Oh, well, that's good. So I think, you know, what I had read, and I didn't say anything because I didn't want to say anything wrong again, was pretty much what you're saying, that this is a better deal and it's network, and it's easier to find. My only concern is now I've got to get FS2. I'm going to figure out where I'm going to get that one from.
You'll have it.
I'll find it.
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but, so we'll just leave it at that.
Okay, very good. Now, there's a race a week from this coming weekend in Mid-Ohio. And something that's been tested on for about a year is a hybrid system. And that's going to be put in the cars if it's not already been put there. Because I think they're testing now in
Iowa.
Iowa, yes. I think the hybrid system in the cars in Iowa.
Yeah, and we had every car on track in Milwaukee last week.
Yes.
Or earlier this week, I
So
can't
they,
keep track of the
they
date.
figured it out and got it to where they think it'll be competitive, but from what from what I read, that the drivers like it. Oh, I gotta take the pill now.
That isn't me. First I thought you had gas, and now I think you got a phone call.
And I read that on street road courses, both the hybrid system and the engine push-to-pass can be used simultaneously to get 120 horsepower. I gotta think when you hit that thing, one or two things will happen. The rear tires will spin like crazy, or the car's gonna go, boom, front end's gonna pop up. That's a lot of horsepower, one push.
Yeah, it's not that much horsepower.
That's what
It'll add about 50. But there's a few great things about it. And, you know, touch wood, the testing has been great. We've been working on it with the teams for a long time, and hopefully the rollout at Mid-Ohio will be seamless. The first thing is that it puts a ton of decisions and strategy literally in the hands or mind of the driver. Because he can use push to pass, but he can also decide how to regen and when to use it. So that's really cool. And by the way, we'll see, but the plan even for the ovals next year, including the big oval next year, will be to have that ability. So we haven't had push to pass, we haven't had this boost at the oval, and we're pretty optimistic that for next year in Indy, you can have this horsepower boost, which we think could be very, assuming it's safe, it'll be very exciting. So it does that. Drivers have to decide how to use it. And we think on TV and otherwise, there'll be ways to demonstrate that kind of graphically so a fan can understand the decisions that a driver's making. I think it's a great driver-centric addition. The other thing is, here's the most basic. You can start the car with it.
Yeah.
So if we're out on a street or road course, you know, we had it at Laguna Seca, and the car's dead. You don't have to get the truck in there and electronically start it. The guy hits a button and he's off. So it should really minimize the amount of time to correct yellows when that sort of thing happens in that format of racing. It's also got economic or environmental benefits and other things, but we're really excited about it, and we'll see what happens the second half of this year, 25 and 6, and then look for some even more radical stuff, new stuff for 27.
Now, is there ever, and I've gotten emails and texts about this, is there ever any chance that IndyCar would go to all electric?
No.
I said, are you kidding me? Can you imagine sitting in the grandstand, it's all electric, and you tell them to turn the PA down, it's too loud?
I answered your question.
I know.
No chance in that. It ain't gonna happen.
I agree with that. But I also found it interesting when I had Bill Pappas that one of the two engine manufacturers said, we got the system figured out for the hybrid, and we got a battery that'll work, and Bill said, no battery. No battery.
That's important.
No.
So back up.
I'm sorry.
The hybrid system we're introducing in a week, the week after this, that'll go through 26, does not have a battery. Honda, by the way, and Ilmor and Chevy worked incredibly hard together to really develop all this. It was amazing that these hard-nosed competitors collaborated to figure this out. And Honda took the lead in the energy storage system, which might be a battery, but it's not. It's called a capacitor pack, and you'll have to see what it looks like. But cap pack is the storage mechanism for hybrid energy over this period of time, call it 2.5 years. We are going to do something different. We're working on another body, another chassis, and another powertrain for 2027. And that might very well have a battery. But this initial installation or installment of hybrid will not have a battery. It's a capacitor pack. It fits in the bell housing. It's a different thing.
And it can be recharged with braking, I think it said, and that's probably wrong too. Because I read something that did say 120 horsepower somewhere.
Well, I don't know what you read, but it's possible, and I would guess over 2.5 years, we'll keep adding, and it might be able to get to that. But initially, it'll be more like 50 horsepower, which is not nothing, right? That's a useful boost on top of push to pass for the racing.
You know, it's amazing, you mentioned a minute ago that you put in the driver's hands when to use these options, and it'll fit into the strategies. And right now, there's a lot of strategy. And I have to say, the two commentators that the NBC had, and I guess they're both going with Fox, James Hinchcliffe and T. Bell, have done an excellent job of explaining what's going. What did I say, something wrong?
I didn't know they'd been hired by Fox.
I thought I read that they were going to go.
I can promise you, no decision has been made on who the commentators will be for Fox next year. Happily, I can say two things, and I know there were a lot of our fans who were worried about whether our telecast would look like NASCAR's telecast next year. It won't. Fox absolutely gets the idea that an IndyCar broadcast needs to be about IndyCar and feel and look like IndyCar, and that's different than whatever they do for NASCAR. So that's important. But the other thing is 0 decisions have been made about who the broadcasters will be, who the directors, and all the other people you don't see that make a telecast of it. Yeah, but they're thinking about it. We had discussions with them at Laguna Seca. They met with some of the current NBC guys. Nobody's been offered anything so far.
I'll put my 2 cents in. I think they do a nice job.
I think they do.
And explain, because Scott Goodyear used to get in trouble when he did every race, he would say what understeer, what oversteer, what loosen, would explain it. And he'd catch hell for doing it. And his option, and to me, was smart. There might be a new viewer that has no clue what you're talking about. Tell them. I watch hockey, and they say stuff in there. I don't have a clue what they're talking about, so I don't watch hockey. So I think Hinch and T. Bell do a good job.
We do too. They're terrific, and talking with Eric Shanks, who's the president of Fox Sports, but he's also the executive producer. He's really thinking about what our show looks like, how we tell stories, who tells them. He's doing the right things. He's already said philosophically what I've already said. It's not going to be taking a NASCAR broadcast and plopping it down on IndyCar. But he's looking really widely. Obviously, you're going to look at Townsend Bell and Kevin and Hinch. But there's other people out there too, and I think we appreciate them, kind of starting from scratch with the benefit of the history in the last several years of these guys who've been on NBC.
Okay. So nobody's asked me what I thought, but I just thought I'd bring up.
I'm sort of half-assed agreeing with you.
I know you are. I realize that. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. I know that you have not a whole lot to do in a day. It's a short day. You just, go out to lunch for a couple hours. I understand that, but take the time to come here. When I ask it, I appreciate it, and explaining the questions that I get that I don't have the answer to. And you see, when I read stuff and tell you about it, I'm completely wrong anyway. So there's no
Well,
reason for me to tell everybody.
Don, first, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here because you all are good people and you're our fans. So I enjoy that opportunity. Also, because look, in today's world, you don't know what's right and what's wrong. So anytime I can tell you what I know to be true or what I don't know because it's not knowable yet, it hadn't been decided, it's good for us to be able to do that. So I appreciate you having us. I appreciate you doing the show, and I wish you well.
Well, I got a lot of things people say, boy, I wish we were there. I'd like to see this one. So there'll be a lot of viewers when it goes online. I thank you for your time. I thank you for what I think IndyCar is doing and heading in the right direction. I think moving to Fox was a good move, in my opinion. Nobody asked me, but in my opinion anyway.
Well, you should say that loud. It's okay.
Oh, I do. Trust me, I do. And I think things are looking well. My two concerns is being guaranteed a spot. That I'm not real thrilled about. And the other one was push to pass. If you're a race driver and you can see what's going on ahead of you, you ought to be able to pass anyway. But
That
that's
would
just
be
my
nice.
opinion. Yeah, well,
All right, well, thanks. Good to
thank
see you
for
all.
your time.
Take care.
Mr. Mark Miles. Now, my next guest, I'm not sure about. He is referred to by the inner circle of the world as Chicago's own. And I have to say, I remember a picture several years ago. He was invited, God only knows why, to Wrigley Field, and he was in a Cub uniform.
That's right. Anyone a Sox fan? Is anyone a Sox fan?
Yes.
You are a Sox fan?
Of
I
course.
didn't know that. Yeah, I was. We had Hewlett Packard as a sponsor, and they had found out that I grew up in Chicago near Wrigley Field, and they said, "Hey, why don't you come out? We rent Wrigley Field, and you can come out and you wear the uniform." And we played a day game and a night game, and we had if you follow the Cubs, on first base was Ernie Banks was the coach. And on third base was Billy Williams. And again, I grew up as a baseball fan in Chicago. So prior to going to this event at Wrigley Field, I started going to batting cage. I told my wife, if I have a chance to play baseball at Wrigley Field, I'm not going to strike out. I'm going to try my hardest to hit a home run, which is impossible, right? And so I get there, I'm in the uniform, my family is in the stands. I hit the ball in the outfield, and I'm running like a deer because I want to hit a home run, right? The ball doesn't get close to the wall even, but it's in the outfield, and I am running like a deer. And I come around third base, and Billy Williams, a famous outfielder, he's stopping me. He's like, stop, stop, stop. And I'm like, oh, I got to third base, and I'm like, I really wanted to hit a home run. Then it hit me like it was like a dream. I'm like, wait, I'm at Wrigley Field, and Billy Williams just stopped me from hitting an inside the park home run? That was that's what happened on the event. In addition, I slid into second base and I got the pants dirty. And to this day, they have never been washed. They're in my house because I gotta keep those, right? I have to prove that I played. So thank you for bringing that up. I forgot all about that.
All right. In case you didn't know, Chicago's own Scott Jasek.
Yeah, okay. Thanks. And you grew up in Chicago, right? Or you were born? Yeah. That's where the Chicago own thing started a long time ago.
Yeah.
No one knows that was a commercial, right? Remember that was like Chicago's own,
Oh, yeah,
and then they would be
yeah.
like Mike Ditka, and then it was Chicago's own, and Michael Jordan, then it was Don Kay.
No.
Remember it was like,
Over the top.
Now,
I have to admit, I really love Don. Don't you guys love Don? He's unbelievable. Now, one thing, and whenever I come on this show, I ask, I still don't believe Don's ridden in the two-seater, right?
Yes.
You have not ridden.
No.
Right. Why don't we get Don to come out and ride in a two-seater, right?
My reasoning behind that is very simple. I've been following this sport for more than 60 years.
Yeah.
I know, I love it. And I think it's more important to get people that are kind of, I'll try it. And then they did it. How many people, you've done over 12,000 rides.
Oh, 12,000, that was in the first couple of years, Don. Give me more credit.
Whatever.
We're over 100,000 rides.
Okay, all right, got 100,000. How many people got out of the car and said, this is a bunch of crap and walked away?
Never. Zero.
Yes,
Zero.
that's my point.
Yeah.
And
No, but we want you, don't we want Don to come
No.
out? I'm not, as a guest, I do. You don't have to pay anything. I'm tempted on paying you to come take a
Oh,
ride.
boy. Now we'll talk.
And you guys would all come out and see him, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right. We gotta make this happen.
Now, let's get down to the basics.
Basics.
One day, some 20 years ago or so, you got together with Jeff Sinden and Joe Kennedy.
Yeah,
You were an executive with Budget Rent-A-Car, and you got a napkin and had an idea.
right.
And you jotted down what your plan, what your thought was to build a two-seater race car and go around. And the other two guys said, yeah, that sounds kind of interesting, and you've done
Right.
it. It has been around for over 20 years.
Yeah, 20, well, this year's 24, so it'll be 25. We're coming up to 25 years doing this.
And people line up to get in. The thing that I found interesting when I traveled a lot is I'd watch the sports news at night, and the sportscasters would go for a ride, and they'd get on and they'd just gush about what a great thrill it is to ride. And the drivers, they had Davey Hamilton, Mario, and whoever else you have driving from time to time. And you built it to a point where when Dallara went to build a building, you guys were part of the building.
Correct?
But now you have succumbed to the pressures and have sold your part of it and moved on. You've told me several times that all of a sudden now you're a real estate typhoon and this other kind of thing.
Not to
Where
the
did-
Donald Trump level. but
No,
yeah.
well, no. But I've never asked you, where did you move?
So here's what happened. Of course, we used to be down at Gasoline Alley, and then as the U.S. distributor from Dallara. So let me backtrack for just a minute to tell you this story, because I find it a bit fascinating that I lived this story. So the two-seater was the baby that was born, and through it, we've developed all these businesses. The first one was when John Paulo Dallara came to us and said, could you put the spare parts on the two-seat trailer, the spare parts for the IndyCar racing, and become the U.S. distributor for Dallara. They brought us the contract. I remember reading it and going, this doesn't seem right. Like, there's a lot of things in this contract that if everything's followed by the letter of the law of this contract, we could lose a lot of money doing this, because there were issues like we would be responsible for all obsolete parts. Well, what if IndyCar just came along and said, we don't like that side pod, we want new side pods, and we have 100 side pods that we have to. So there was a lot of things in it that scared me. Well, once we met with Katerina Dallara, who was John Paulo's daughter, who's a wonderful lady, she explained we have to put that in the agreement based on Italian law, but in U.S. law you don't have to abide by that. So of course, naive as I was back then, I didn't quite have a lawyer look at it. We looked at it, we agreed to it, we signed it, and off we went. What ended up happening was there was more parts than that would fit on the two-seat truck, so we had to buy a Indy parts truck. So then we went to races with two trucks, a two-seat truck with two two-seaters in it, and the Indy parts truck. That's the first thing, the two-seat, I'll use, born that business, the Indy parts. Well, that progressed. Of course, Indy Lights evolved out of it, or what was it called? Indy Lights and Indy. It's changed its name. Of course, it's Indy Next today. So now those are two trucks. Well, then we evolved to 4 two-seat cars and then 6 two-seat cars. That's where we're at now. So we go with 2 transports for the Indy racing experience and 2 transports for Dallara, which then evolved to a sports car transports, and then we're at 3. Then IndyCar came to us and said, since you already have the insurance and the expertise and the drivers, take on all the pace car program. So we transport all the Honda pace cars and execute the Chevy pace car deal at IndyCar races. Well, along the way, we then were provided the opportunity to be the show car program, which you remember the show car program. And thank you for working for us back in those days. We've had so many people help us throughout the years. But then we had the show car program. And as the story goes and time goes on, we needed to build and rebuild our own engines, but Menard was doing that, and then John Menard called us one day and said, I'm selling my Menard's Engine Group. So we bought the Menard's Engine Group. So all of a sudden we're in the engine business. So now we're in the racing experience, the parts business, the engine business. Well, then the town is Speedway. I'm at a chamber luncheon, and they tell me, we're gonna redevelop Main Street. Well, no one, believe it or not, a lot of people did not grasp the concept of who Dallara was. They didn't know. They thought Indy cars were just built in garages and all around. I said, no, Dallara is an Italian company, and we build the Indy cars in Italy, but if you're gonna develop Main Street, well, let's build a building and start building the cars here where they belong to be built, here in the United States, right next to the greatest racetrack in the world. So we partnered with John Paulo Dallara, and we built the building. And not to get in great detail, but when you're building and you have a partner that's a foreign national, the bank doesn't care. They want you, the US partners, so at the time it was Jeff Sinden, Joe Kennedy, myself, we were personally responsible for that building. John Paulo Dallara, even though he was our partner, he didn't have any financial responsibility other than he promised to pay the rent. So time went on, and we said, well, as we developed the building, we go, let's make it where people can tour and see the Indy cars built. That was the original idea. Well, then it turned into an event venue. So all of a sudden we have a two-seater to show car. It's like a song, right? It just keeps getting, things get added on. Now we have an event business. So, and then simultaneously we started operating at Disney. Remember when we started to head the track down there?
Yep.
Well, we're at Disney, and Richard, we started working at the same time with Richard Petty Driving Experience. Well, Richard Petty Driving Experience was owned by a private equity firm, and they owned Richard Petty's naming rights, Richard Petty's race team, a company called Experiential Event Group, and the Richard Petty Driving Experience. So 4 things. Well, the private equity firm was selling everything. So Richard bought his name back with Roush, I think at the time, or somebody. Today it's now Legacy Racing. And then another guy Bob Lutz bought the Richard Petty Driving Experience. And then this company, Experiential Event Group, went up for sale. And it's a ride and drive company. It's large. And at the last minute, one of the chairman of the private equity firm, David Zucker, called me and said, would you like to partner with me to buy this? Because NASCAR was going to buy it, and the deal fell through. And so I was like, wow, to buy this Experiential Event Group in Charlotte would be a perfect tie-in to everything else we're doing. So we bought EEG. So now we have the two-seater right now. It just keeps going now, right? I'm getting to the story of the building, so just stay with me.
I'm still here, I'm still awake.
Did I tell you about my pants got dirty when I was a couple? Am I boring you guys? Is this okay? All right, sorry. So then we end up with a Charlotte company. So now we have the Indy Racing Experience, the Indy Engine Group, Indy Parts, Main Street Events, JV Real Property, which is the building, which my title on that was CEO of that, and I'm chairman of the Experiential Event Group. But the Experiential Event Group, like last year we paid both W-2 and 1099s 800 people. So it's significant. It's a big company, right? So and then there we do the Ferrari Challenge. Like our people were just here at the Speedway. We do Mecum auctions. We do Boeing. We have 80 golf carts that we rent to all the NASCAR teams. Then we developed a company called Event Talent Management, which we provide product specialists to the auto shows and all. So we do 4-wheel drive training for special forces in Nevada. Now we go to Lighton. Lighton is a company that, through our Hewlett-Packard sponsorship, they approached us and said, we have this really advanced material. It's called graphene. Has any of you ever heard of graphene?
No.
No, see, 12 years ago, it was discovered. It's the strongest particle on Earth. It's a very unique particle. Lighton, the Lighton company, L-Y-T-E-N, you can Google it or whatever. I met the founder of it, Dan Cook. He worked for Steve Jobs, as did the chief scientist, Michael Stowell. He's got now over 600 patents the company has on graphene. So you mentioned batteries a few minutes ago. Lighton, well, let me backtrack. How do we get involved with Lighton? Because of our HP sponsorship, I was introduced at a race with the two-seater, and they said, hey, we want to get involved with Dallara, we want to get involved with Firestone, we have this advanced technology. So I then made a deal with them where our company was compensated in shares of their early startup Silicon Valley company. Today, the Lighton company, I'll jump really quick to where the valuation of it, it's valued at over $1 billion, and Dan Cook is considered one of the top 50 most influential people in Silicon Valley. So through the two-seater, we got to know them. Now let me get back to what Lighten does. An advanced battery, it's a graphene battery. Graphene comes in 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. So using gas and electric and a reactor, we produce 3-dimensional graphene, which gets a little complicated, but to make it simple form, the battery is a US only battery, currently used by the national security and the US military. If you think of a Tesla battery will recharge 1,100 times. Our battery will only recharge 900 times. However, it'll go 3 times further than a Tesla battery. We then have advanced sensor. And I'm gonna get back to the building because this all ties in. At the end of this, everyone's sleeping by now. Like, what? Mark Miles was far more exciting than I am. Anyways, the sensor technology, it's crazy. We put it on the wings. I'll tie it to IndyCar for a minute. The wings of the car, the front wing, no one really knows how much they flex because you can't quite tell, right? So some are stiffer than others. No one really knows. We have a sensor that is tiny, like as thin as this napkin and maybe that big. You put that sensor on the wing, and the sensor, the material talks. The material tells an antenna, I'm moving this much. I'm doing this. The material speaks. It's the craziest thing. So it goes to this antenna, which then goes to a very tiny processor. That sensor also goes on tires. So right now we did a partnership with I tried to get Firestone. There was issues with Japan and all, and they have to be careful with the NSA, who's involved in a lot of this stuff. But Goodyear Racing is using it right now, and it's the sensor will tell everything about the tire, whether it's sticking, whether it's all kinds of issues, right? So there's the sensor technology, and then of course there's advanced materials. It's stronger and lighter. You put it in with the carbon fiber, but it makes it stronger and lighter. So now back to the building.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Dallara then they have opportunities to grow the military business. So Purdue, I was talking to Dan Hassler, who's the head of Purdue's relocation out of IUPUI, and then President Mung. I tried to lure Purdue onto Main Street because another real estate thing I was trying to do, which I'm close to getting done, is buying the old Allison building across the street from us. I want to buy that building and renovate it and turn it into something really cool because it's falling apart. So I was trying to get Purdue to get involved there. Well, Purdue's going to move into part of where we're moving out. Now the big surprise, Don, I bought another Allison factory, which is at 62nd Street. Anyone familiar? Right off the interstate there. So we bought that Allison building. We're going to convert that into the Indy racing experience and the engine group and all. We're going to make it very dark, a dark gray with red stripes to make it different than what it looks like today. And we're going to operate our Indy racing experience there. However, the sensor technology, we're going to bring that into that building with us and develop advanced sensor technology that could be used for all kinds of things. Even medical, biological things that sensor technology can do. That's a lot. So that's how we got to where we're at today, Don.
And all that for being...
To make a long story longer.
And all that developed from an executive with budget rent-a-car and a napkin and a pen and 2 other guys.
Yeah. And subsequently a few years ago, Jeff Sinden retired, so we bought Jeff out. So it's just Joe and I own a lot of the companies, and we have in our Charlotte company we have David Zucker as our partner there.
And it seems to me your experiential business does movies, provides vehicles for movies and so forth.
We do some movies. We have vehicles, camera vehicles. That's a small piece of the business, but a unique piece of. A lot of things we do are unique. In the business world today, I call these things mini monopolies, right? Well, and I don't mean a monopoly in a bad way. Take the Indy racing experience. If everyone was building 2-seat Indy cars, there would be a risk first that everyone would be driving the price down, which would then sacrifice safety, which the numbers one thing, when anyone takes a ride in a two-seater, I could assure you personally, I'm standing right there, I watch it all. We are focused on safety, not 100%, beyond 100%. Everything we do has a double check. When someone gets in the two-seater, prior to getting in, of course, we give you the fire suit, the helmet, the shoes, and then when they get in the car, it's a 5-point harness. Two of our crew members are watching that. Someone's checking the tires, the driver's communicating with Joe Kennedy. Joe and I take great care in monitoring the two-seaters. Well, they make sure everything is operational, safe-wise. Then, right when the person's about to take off, or the car's to take off, we close their visor, we give them the ride to come back. It's, when you're watching it from a distance, you don't realize, but we are 100% all about safety. So if, when I go into the mini monopoly, if you allowed a lot of people to start competing and running cars at 180 miles around the speedway, I think it would sacrifice safety. But thankfully, Mark Miles' boss, who now calls me once in a great while, which is good, he embraces the program today. His son, Greg Penske, I'm mentioning Roger Penske there, Greg Penske really embraces the program, and he really loved it. And he was instrumental in making sure, because Roger Penske was not originally, he didn't embrace the program. He was afraid of it, of the liability. That's why it doesn't start the 500. He doesn't want anything to go wrong. It starts every other race.
I'm glad I asked you that.
I can ramble.
And I think a lot of the safety has to go back to the day, years back.
Yeah,
when the rear wing fell off.
Yeah, and so everyone remembers that's the year one, that's the first car. Those were the proof of concept cars. And it's so many years now I could tell the story, it doesn't really matter. That was the only, I would say, the mistake we made from a safety point. We bought a rear wing. Well, let me backtrack for a second. When you see the cars, the two-seaters run at the speedway, we're using short track wings because we want the car you know the term planted. We need it stuck to the ground. So instead of super speedway wings, we're using short track wings. So when you look at the car, the two-seater, if you really observe it at IMS, it's short track wings pushing down. So when we first, those were the year one, we buy the rear posts. There's two of them. So it looks like the letter H holding the rear wing. So imagine a team that we bought those posts from, which we should have never done, but we did because they go, oh, we got stuff for sale. So we didn't buy that directly from Dallara. They had hollowed out, I won't mention the team, they had hollowed out the posts to lighten the car. But on the super speedway, with that excess amount of downforce, it broke. And that's what happened. So it was a cheater part that we had accidentally bought, not knowing was a cheater part, that broke. So that changed, and I'm probably in a good way. It happened in the first year because you go, well, I'll never let that happen to me again. I'll only buy Dallara parts, and since then in fact, we just spent $300,000 to upgrade what I'll call the four older cars. We put new suspension on them. We have the better brakes on them. So we're continually, like an airplane, we're continually upgrading the cars. The tubs themselves they were so well made, they'll last a million years. But
the interesting thing about it is when they interviewed the guy that was in the car, said that was the biggest thrill he ever had.
yeah, and we eventually saw him again. He resurfaced in Milwaukee. I think it was Milwaukee. Years later, all of a sudden the guy showed up and he's like, do you remember me? And I didn't. And he goes, I'm the guy that spun at Indy, remember? Oh, I'm like, yeah. And then we gave him a ride there in Milwaukee. So.
Was it as thrilling?
Well, you would know one day when you take the ride. Wait, first, who's ridden in the two-seater here? Yeah, okay. Is it, and forget that I own it. I took a ride myself with Mario during the pandemic and I did 7 laps. Now, I had no idea I did 7 laps, but because as you know, you're just caught in a moment. They could have said I did 3, 4, I don't know. But one of the laps, what I found interesting, he came out of turn 4 and then he blipped the engine just for a second. I heard it. Like, and I thought something happened again. It was just for a split second, like, bum, bum, and then it kept going. So then I asked him later, I go, what? I heard you blip the engine. He goes, oh, we got up in the marbles. Because I should say during the pandemic, they weren't letting anybody in, of course. We had Mario wanted to run the two-seater with someone in it, and we ran right after all the teams did the practice on carb day, which there was nobody there, and we went out. So there were marbles. So him doing that actually changed my perspective of how does a driver know, like us as individuals in that car, I would have went through the wall, I would have went through the whole neighborhood, and I would have ended up at Union Jacks before I would have said, I think I was in the marbles, right? It's amazing so not only, we all know that the experience is amazing, but it really puts in perspective what these drivers really are. I mean, they're incredible. The feel, and I was fortunate to work around Mario for a long, long time and have a lot of conversations with Mario. He would come to the track a couple hours before every time. And I mean, we talked about life, we talked about celebrities and all, but what his feel for a race car, and I put this in perspective, I think Mario Andretti drove a race car, has driven a car at a high rate of speed more than any human that ever lived. Because he drove our two-seater all the way into his 80s, and he was racing since he was 15. So he had this incredible feel. We one time had a Honda engine that we thought had an issue. The Honda guy came, and he's like, no, there's no issue. Mario goes, I'm telling you, in 2 more laps, this engine's gonna blow. And son of a gun, he was spot on. The second lap, the engine blew. So the kid then couldn't believe that Mario was right and the computer was wrong. So Mario, the cylinder head, Mario signed it and sent it to the kid. And basically saying his rear end was smarter than that computer.
It's amazing what these drivers do sense when they've been around and get the feel. I can remember, this was years ago when AJ was doing a test, and they muckied with the pressure in the tire, and he knew immediately. He came right, I think 2 laps he come in, he said, you let air out of that tire.
Oh, yeah.
Did we? Oh, yeah, you did, I could tell. And you know, how they can feel, and it goes back to where the days, and I've seen this happen when I worked for a race team, that one driver would get in the car and say, geez, this thing is a piece of junk. The other guy get in and said, fabulous, let's go, and he'd go balls out fast. So
another thing we're involved in, which is that autonomous Indy cars. Now, a lot of people think like, oh, they're going to take over racing. Well, it's not. The technology's not. But the technology proves how good the race car drivers are, because the technology with all these computers in it can't even come close to a feel of a human being driving. So I'm involved in the autonomous cars.
Well, that's good. And it's true. They do feel what's going, and they can tell the engineer. And when I worked with Dick Simon, he would go out, the first thing he'd do was take the temperature on all 4 tires.
Mm-hmm.
That tells you most everything. Then he talked to the driver. If the driver told him with the tires that they were in good shape, if the driver didn't tell him, now we got a problem.
Right.
And it took me a while to figure that out, but it's true. And these guys, you know, the crews work hours and hours and hours on the car to get it the way the driver wants it, whoever it is. And they go out, you know, with a shiny helmet, they get in the car and they go race. And everybody knows them. It's like the quarterback on a football team. Everybody knows who the quarterback is. But the other 11 guys are beating the hell out of each other trying to keep the people away from him.
Right.
It's essentially the same thing that the driver can feel. When they've got the experience, they can feel. And some of the young kids today, I'm amazed at some of what their experience that they're bringing into the Indy racing league and not the Indy racing, but to the ladder system.
Right.
Is amazing.
I've been watching the F2000. I've got a fun. So you guys follow F2000? Did you clap for F2000? Oh, good. So I started following it. Who is that? Okay, and I like Sam. I like Sam Corey. He's in second in points right now. Does anybody have a daughter? Do you have a daughter? Anybody have a daughter? It's like,
yeah,
so, okay. So my daughter is 16. Sam Corey, when he was 15, he won at the Speedway. And then he was at our shop and I got introduced to him and I said, oh, I have a daughter your age. And I said, her name is Jasek. don't ever call her or talk to her. So then I went home and I told my daughter, I met a driver named Sam Corey, never talked to him. I was just kidding around, I was joking. So then, you know, this Instagram thing they have out there? So she goes on Instagram and says, I heard you met my dad, my father. Well, then he's like, yeah, I met your father. He said not to talk to you. She goes, don't worry, you can talk to me. Well, then it's now evolved. Well, now we go to the races and we got to go see Sam Corey. And I've gotten a very nice family and a very good racer. But I created, so the thing, you create your own mess, right? So,
Yeah, I made a career out of that one.
yeah. But I've been following the F2000 and watching Sam race and watching the development. Unbelievable, these kids. Really, really good racers out there. And how about the lady winning in the next series,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, that's exciting. I feel bad because I don't know her name offhand, off the top of my head. What? That's it. Yeah,
Jamie
yeah.
Chadwick,
Sorry. Yes.
I was gonna let you stumble before I said it.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me stumble.
Yeah, yeah, it's, I've had a number of the female drivers that are coming up. McKenna Haase is one. I have Kaylee Bryson, who's done quite well and is doing quite well. In fact, she won one of the Trans Am races by almost 30 seconds and blew them away.
Good.
And then she won the sprint car at dirt in Belleville, I think it was. First
Don't you
female
feel
to do
like
that.
when you see like this Caitlin effect on
Caitlin Clark.
when you see that sometimes in sports or in life in general, there's suddenly someone that makes this dramatic difference, right? Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan, right? It's going to be this magical moment of this person, and sometimes my gut feel is that one day it will be a woman that will suddenly burst through, and we saw a little taste of it with Danica Patrick or back in the Sarah Fisher days, but when it really, when a dominant woman gets involved and starts really doing well in the top series, whether it be IndyCar, NASCAR, Formula One, it'll be a magnet of attention. I believe that drives us. That will take the sports, whichever one it happens to be, to the next level.
Well, I've watched several of the Fever games, and I happened to see that the Fever were playing the second night, that the team they're playing, the Mystics, I think. First night, it was televised, and I watched it, and I looked at the crowd, and I think they said there was just under 10,000 there.
Yeah.
The next night when she played, it was a sellout, 23,000.
yeah.
And now they're able to fly in private jets
Right.
because of what she's done instead of commercial airlines.
Yeah, no, it's always in sport. You know, we go back to the Tiger Woods days. There's just that unique
Yeah.
individual, right?
Yeah.
So it's just, and we'll see how that evolves.
Well, I'm thinking it's going to happen.
I've been rambling here, Don. Are we here been for 2 hours? What have you been here?
Don, can we get Mario out of retirement to
To
take
do-
the Hummer two-seater?
Oh, I would desperately try to make that happen. Although I have to follow rules by Roger Penske, and there are rules of who can drive and who can't drive. And I think part of it, Mario. Now I want to make sure everyone understands. Mario, when he stopped driving the two-seater, is because he focused on the Formula One deal. So it wasn't like we said, "Oh, Mario, you're too old" or anything like that. That wasn't the case. His focus was Formula One. So he let his driver license expire, which might be difficult today to get back. But yes. And now, what I always do, Davey Hamilton is I shouldn't say my favorite two-seat driver, but he's the longest. He's been doing it the longest. So whenever I have friends and family ride, I just put him with Davey just because I know Davey. If anyone's gonna feel the car the most, it's Davey Hamilton. So I would have Don ride with Davey Hamilton. So yeah. And Davey knows the program inside and out, and it is. And that's no disrespect to anyone that drives a two-seater. It's just Davey, and he's the oldest guy now driving, so I tease him a little bit on that. So.
And strangely enough, or maybe not strangely, because of his father and himself, DJ is doing very well.
DJ, so
His son.
yes,
I don't know who DJ is.
and you know, like all young guys, things happen, and DJ had a little incident where he got a little trouble, but he's good. What I'm so impressed about DJ is when he put that sprint car deal together. Like he did that all by himself, 26 years old, and I was with him in Monterey, and I was telling him how proud I am of him. You know, as someone that likes to start businesses and all these things and take chances in the business world, it's not too often that you come across someone that, and I always call it the magic formula. Everybody in this room, we all have ideas, right? So there's three things. Everyone has an idea, 100% of the world. Then there's only about like 20% of the world that can write a plan, like actually write it out, like write out. Here, remember what I'm telling you. So you have an idea, you write a plan, but then the mystery is the 1%. The reason 1% of this world is wealthier than the rest, it's because they just make it happen. So it's this make it happen, which is, there's so many things in the make it happen part of it, but DJ had put all three. I talked to him, I go, what? He had the idea. Then he's like, I wrote the plan down, and then he made it happen. And he did it and made a profit. Now this year he's going to have 2 races, and I told him in about 10 or 15 years he's going to own Mid Ohio, he'll own Toronto, he will be a promoter. I swear he will be a promoter in 10 or 15 years of big races.
You know, he's quite. And I talked to Davey at the Speedway, and I said, "Did your son come to town?" He said, "Yeah, from time to time." I said, "Here," he said, "We'll call you when he's in town." I said, "I'd like the both of you to come."
Oh, that would be wonderful. And DJ is a joy. He's a sweet kid. I mean, he's got a personality like you wouldn't believe. And
I've had him here once.
yeah,
But I'd like to have him here with his dad.
that would be good. That'd be good.
Did Kenny ever finally retire? Did they pull him out of the car?
Who, the grandfather? I mean,
Yeah, the grandfather.
yeah, or
Davey's dad.
Davey's father. I know. I think he still races from time to time. I don't think it's in all these racing families. It's in their DNA, right?
Oh, I guess.
That's how it works.
So now you're no longer in downtown Speedway, you're on 62nd Street.
We're at 62nd Street today, and that will stay there. I have an agreement in principle with Walter Medlin, who owns anybody know Walter's got it on. You know Walter Medlin is. His reputation precedes him, but he's not really as bad as everyone thinks he is. He's actually a wonderful man. So he owns the building, and I started pursuing him to buy that building almost a year ago, and I would have lunch with him all the time. Like I say all the time, whenever he's in town, we'd have lunch together, and we got to telling stories, and we got to know each other, and he wouldn't sell me the building, and then one day at lunch, he calls me over, and he's kind of teary-eyed, and he's just sitting there, and he takes this sheet of paper out like this little sheet of paper, pulls it out, and he goes, "There's the deal," and he goes, "Just sign it and give me a check, and that's the deal." And I'm looking at him like, wow, so that's what he wants, a certain amount of money for it. He wants to be in it for 1 year as he transition, and he's willing to sell the building, and that's the deal. And we're taking that little piece of paper and turning that into an agreement, and hopefully then we will acquire the building. And I'd like Walter to always stay involved because he's such a wonderful man, and convert it into something that, I don't want to say what, but it would be a really nice addition to this town of Speedway and the street, and it be something that it's very interactive and pretty cool. So,
Well, I'm surprised you made it here. It's taken me, how many times have I invited you?
I know you did a lot, and I felt bad because you
Oh, no.
invited me, but we were like,
I
what
understand.
happened with these between lawyers and all these things going on, but.
Well,
I love coming here, and it was good. And coincidentally,
Yeah.
I didn't come because you told me. I said this would be the date I can make it, and then Mark Miles happened to be here. So it's always good to see
yeah,
Mark.
he's quite a guy.
That's impressive. I mean, to have Mark Miles and to talk about that, what you had him talking about, that's like in the IndyCar sport. That's really impressive. That was good, right, Doc?
Well, I think that what you and Joe have done, does Jeff ever come back to town, or is he?
Sometimes we run into him. Yeah, we haven't seen him. Yeah, he's around. We haven't seen him in a few months, but yeah, he'll stop in and yeah.
Does he live here in town, or
He does. No, he lives here in town now, out in
out west somewhere?
yeah, out west. Yeah. So it's all that's all good, but
Well, that's good to keep it, at least what you're doing. And I gotta tell you, you have a gal, when you want to book a ride that takes care of her. Her name is LaShonda Kennedy. She's married to Joe's
Yep.
son. She is, without a doubt, the best thing you've ever had.
absolutely.
People that I've talked to, that I've talked into getting rides and have helped get rides, have said, she is fabulous. She greets everybody, always got a smile. Any question you have, she'll answer it. She'll tell you which way, she usually tells me to get the hell out, but for the most
Me
part,
too.
tell you where, yeah.
She's
But
and her and her husband, Chris, have taken such ownership of the program. It's allowed me personally to go and pursue a lot of these other opportunities because I entrust, Chris knows what's going on with the car, Shonda knows what's going on with the customer, and it's not like, you know how sometimes there's the BS customer service, like when I worked at a bunch of car rentals, like, we're gonna have the cleanest cars in the business, but then they'd be like, oh, you got 15 minutes to clean the car. Well, you're not gonna have the cleanest cars in the business, right? But she's authentic, she truly loves every one of our customers. She treats us as secondary, right? I say us as the crew, I mean, she'll yell at us, I mean, the customer is, in her heart and soul, the number one most important person, which I love about it. And so our role is to keep the program safe, she keeps the customers happy, and it built a successful business that will go on for, as long as it's operated in that manner, it will go on forever, because even when like someone like Roger Penske buys the Speedway, and I heard numbers like 4 vendors are left, everybody else got, you know, he changed vendors. We're fortunate we made it over that hump of you know, making Penske happy with us, and Mark Miles, and we're part of the fortunate we're part of the family, so. And that's because of Chris and Shonda, not really, has nothing to do with me.
Well, I wasn't gonna say that, but well, I know I've watched many people take rides in the way you handle them and take care of it. I can tell you for a fact that the safety is your number one, because I see you
Yeah.
guys watching and looking and checking. And I gotta
I
tell you,
love meeting all the people too. I mean, it's
Oh,
just,
yeah.
it's so fun to watch. You know, what a great business I'm fortunate to be involved with, is to see everyone get out happy. Or when, and I've told these stories many times, but I like when someone brings a grandparent or something, the whole family comes out.
Yeah.
Grandpa doesn't look happy. He's in the fire suit. He's sweating. We put a helmet on. And then when you take him out and he's like, ah, he's screaming. The family's looking at him like, whoa, he's like a little girl, like a 5-year-old little girl screaming. I love those. Those are my favorite ones.
yeah, 100,000 rides, that's amazing.
Yeah, probably more than that now. I mean, we don't like, it's not like the McDonald's where we keep track, but we pretty much average 5,000 to 7,000 rides a year, in that range, depending. Sometimes we do corporate events, you know, so it depends. It's kind of in that range. When we were running at Disney, we were not, you know, we were doing 50 or 60 rides a day there every day. So, yeah, it's well over 100,000. Yeah.
And you took time out of your schedule to come here tonight.
Well, of course. We'll see you, Doc. We'll see you all. Thank you. That was kind.
I can't tell you how pleased I am that you take the time, and how proud I can say, you know the guy that has something to do with that two-seater? Yeah, I know him personally. Seriously, I've had that
Well,
question
well,
before.
that's nice.
You know, yeah.
Well, I had a guy the other day, we were in Monterey, no, so I can't remember, one of the tracks here, and this guy goes, you've been working here for like 20 years. He goes, I got a picture with you, and I still have it hanging on my wall. He goes, you were smiling back then, you're smiling now. And I go, it's a nice place to work, good benefits. I go, but the owner's a jerk, but everything else is good. Yeah, it's always fun.
Well,
But
I
thank you
think-
for the kind words.
Well, I thank you for your time and coming here, and of course, unfortunately for you, I do know how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, it's okay.
So
No,
down
it's
the
all right.
road-
This was a really odd year because of all this real estate stuff and all these tax and things that you have to deal with. It's very complicated.
I know, that's why I let you do it, and I don't have to.
Yeah. That's why I don't have any hair. I shave my head. I have to shave. I have gray hair. I bet.
So,
Good.
thanks for your time, and, later in the year, or at the end of the year, we'll talk to you again.
Yeah, for sure.
See
But
what else you're
come on. We
doing.
got it. How are we gonna get him in the car? Who's
A
gonna?
lot of Vaseline would help.
No. Who's gonna help me get him in the car? Who's gonna help me get him there to get him in the car?
He's lost now.
He what?
He's lost now.
Yeah, it'll fit like nothing. We'll take care of him. We'll take care of him. No, we'll take care of that too.
You
Yeah.
get a crane. That's what the.
Any day,
Vaseline's for.
don't do the road course, do the oval.
Yeah.
Any day we run the oval, could you help get that done?
Could I help?
Yeah, could you help make sure we get him there? Who's gonna help, who's gonna make sure we get Don there?
Nobody. Oh, buddy.
Will you do that? All right.
Okay.
Any day that we operate, you got my number? I'll make sure you got my number.
I've got your number.
All right, you got my number, but make sure
I got
any
your
day
number.
that we run at the Oval, yeah, make sure any day, then bring the camera. Anyone else, everyone's come out and see it. I think there's a couple of weekend dates that we have in the fall that are on the weekend. Some of them are, yeah, because I think it's more, I think some of the Oval dates are like late September and October. I'll Davey give you the ride.
Oh, boy. All right.
All right, good. Don, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry if I rambled.
Pat Jasek, the one and only, Chicago's own.
Thank you, Don.
Unfortunately, he's a Cub fan, as he's supposed to be. I'm not sure when our next programming will take place. I forgot to grab Tom when he was delivering food, but I have your email address and I'm on Facebook, so the next program, I'll let you know when it is ahead of time, so I can schedule some guests. We'll look to see you here again. So thanks for being here. Thanks for my guests, Scott and Mark Miles, for being here. Thanks for you being here. Till the next time, Don Kay saying good night. We'll see you the next time.